I think we're live. We'll give YouTube a moment as usual. But yeah, I think we're working. I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video here on YouTube. Today we're going to be talking about fluency as usual, but I wanted to just tell this or explain a little bit in a different way. I like to basically share a variety of different angles, often in the same way I teach, to help people understand exactly what they need in order to speak. So we'll give YouTube again a moment, make sure people are filing in that this is actually live, and it looks like we are. All right, I think we are live. So as usual, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Greetings, you want to tell me where you're from, or if you have any specific questions. Raul, nice to see you there. But I will keep an eye on comments, and as I go through my quick story today, this shouldn't be that long of a video, but I always say that, and then we go on for an hour or something. But we'll see. So anyway, I want to talk about learning in general, and then we'll talk about getting fluent in English specifically, because I've had some questions from learners about really what exactly they should be doing to learn. And so I wanted to tell a story about something that happened just 2 days ago in my own family. Looks like we got some Arabic there, which I can't read. So if you want me to be able to read something, let me know. But if you have any questions, again, Japanese or English is fine, I guess. But I can't read Arabic yet. Anyway, so this past week, actually 2 days ago, my wife and I went to my daughter's elementary school. Actually, both of them go to the same school. And this week is parent watching class day. I forget the name of it in English. It's basically like a class visit day. So the parents are standing in the back of the room while the teacher is teaching, and the kids are just getting a lesson like normal, and we can see what happens. So this class, I did both my younger daughter, Noelle, so that was on Tuesday, and then my older daughter, Aria, was yesterday. But my younger daughter, that's what this specific story is about. So we're in the class with her, and today, or not today, but I guess now, her class is learning about math, and most of the addition and subtraction problems they've had have been like up to 10. So we have like 3 plus 7 equals something, equals 10, but they don't go higher than 10 until now. So right now it's easy. Obviously, when you were a child, you can count on your 10 fingers or 10 toes or use little blocks or whatever you want to use. But now they're going over that. And so the teacher spent about 40 minutes talking about this and then giving a new problem that was like 12 plus 3 equals something like that. And so he was asking the class, what do you think about this? And some kids are, they're already at that level where they understand it really well. But some kids, it was new for them. So again, they're trying to go through and make sure they go through all the steps so kids can understand everything. Some kids got it, some kids did not. But they had different ideas about how to do the problem, which was interesting. But the teacher was basically saying, this number over here can be a little bit worrying for some kids because it's higher than 10. So what do we do about that? Anyway, so they go through the class, and my daughter took a little bit of a quiz at the beginning, just basic, addition, so addition problems and subtraction problems as well. And after going through the class, my wife was looking at her answers because she was writing down some stuff on a piece of paper. And at the end of the class, my daughter was crying. And I felt really bad for her. And so my wife and I are sitting there at the end, and my daughter was doing very good to just try to hold in her tears until the end of the class. But then she came and she was crying in my wife's arms because she didn't actually understand it very well. And so she was just having problems with math, and I didn't really, know what was going on about the specific issues she's having or things that she's doing at home. My wife is typically teaching, having her go through little math workbooks or other things like that. But I don't really know so much about what my kids are doing. I focus mostly on helping them with their English, but again, at even like low level like this, I just assume, either they're learning in school or whatever, but whatever I can do to help. And so after that experience, I was talking with my wife about that, and she said Noelle was having trouble doing math at home, and she didn't really want to do it, even if she was getting, some stickers or some kind of, present or something like that. And I said, okay, fine. I'm going to start teaching her and make sure she actually understands this. So just to give you a little bit of background, I'm explaining this, but this was new for me. So 2 days ago in the morning before this class, I had no idea that my daughter was feeling, good or bad about math. I didn't really know one way or the other. I just assumed it was okay because I heard she was doing some things and she could count, and she's a pretty smart girl. But anyway, she was having trouble with that, and I said, okay, fine, I'm going to help her. Now, I want to talk just connecting this to language learning, but the issue here is not how long she'd been learning math. So even something like addition or subtraction, we're going from sometime in the past in Japan. So they start, I guess, in April. That's the beginning of the school year. So she is now a first grader. So she just started elementary school in April. So she's had already a few months. It's now September for learning whatever kind of math practice they're doing. So they're probably doing counting and whatever the specific things, but now they're doing addition, and now with numbers higher than 10. So the question is not really how much time she's spent trying to learn. The real question is, does she understand or not? All right. So again, it's been from April to now in the middle of September. That's a couple of months here, about practicing numbers, making sure she knows them well, and she does understand some of this. But clearly she was very upset about this because she didn't understand it. And I know a lot of people, even myself, for language learning or anything, really, you're trying to practice some kind of skill or learn something, and it's frustrating, and maybe you don't cry, but obviously you feel very emotional if you can't express yourself or you can't do the skill or whatever the thing is you're trying to learn. But what I want to show you here is that the problem for a lot of people when they're trying to learn a skill, so even something like playing the guitar or the piano or whatever, obviously I focus on language learning. I don't teach instruments or whatever, but especially for language learning, the key is not how much time you spend studying, it's how quickly you understand what you're learning. Because if you don't feel confident about what you're saying, then you're not going to speak, or you're going to have trouble expressing yourself. So the point, again, it's not how many months is she learning math, it's how quickly does she get to the point where she actually understands what we're doing. So again, this happened 2 days ago, and I started teaching her 2 days ago. So now we're basically here 2 days ago in September, and so I had my first kind of class with her. I was just working with her, helping her understand math and how it works. And if you're curious, I can explain more about what exactly I was teaching her. But this was 2 days ago, and I've only spent maybe an hour and a half with her. And last night, my wife was telling me that now she is doing these math books by herself, and my wife doesn't need to ask her, and she's actually enjoying it. All right. So and this is like 2 days, but it's really an hour and a half of practicing with her, and not like I did anything magical. Really, the point was I helped her understand what she was doing, and that way she actually felt confident about using it. All right. So in the same way, I'm not saying, okay, you have to practice and practice and practice, and then hopefully at some point, maybe you learn the math, or hopefully at some point, maybe you become able to speak. The point is, can we flip that switch in your brain that says, no, I don't understand. Yes, now I do understand. And now I can use that thing fluently, or now I can do the math problem or whatever. So again, if you're curious about what exactly I was teaching her, I can explain more about that. But if you'd rather just know more about the language aspect of it, I can show you how this works with some examples. Often when I'm giving these lessons or these live videos here, people might have questions about specific grammar points or vocabulary. But typically what happens is they've been thinking about something for a long time, or maybe they've been struggling because they didn't really understand it. But then when they finally do, that switch in their brain flips, that fluent communication switch, and then they're able to use it. Okay? So when people ask me, Drew, how long does it take to get fluent? I say, well, how quickly can you get those aha moments that make that brain flip, that fluent communication switch flip in your brain? So I talk about this in the book as well. I'll be covering, I've been working on Chapter 7. I've actually done a couple of versions of Chapter 7 I'm not really happy with, but the final one will be coming out soon. Again, it's taken me a while because this is a very important chapter, although the chapters before Chapter 7 are actually explaining the method, and even if you don't read Chapter 7, you would still know how to do what I'm explaining. But Chapter 7 really explains why it works. So it's useful to know, and I know people are waiting for it, but I'm working on it. So I want to make sure it's really good, but also very clear for people because it's an important chapter. But this is part of the idea here where the amount of time you spend is not important. It's not like, oh, I've been learning languages for 3 years and now I can speak. But this other person has only been learning for 1 month and they're actually a better speaker than I am. How is that possible? Well, it's because they get these moments where they flip that switch for the things that they're trying to learn. So if I don't feel confident about something, I'm not going to be able to use it. But the moment I do, then that feeling, okay, I got it, now I can start using something. And so that's exactly what happened with my daughter for math, and it's the same thing that can happen for people when they're learning languages. So you don't have to spend a lot of time, you just have to erase those doubts, remove that uncertainty, and the switch flips automatically, and that's when you can start expressing yourself. All right, I'll see if anybody has any specific questions about maybe grammar points or vocabulary or whatever. But if you do, I can help you flip that switch and take something that maybe is uncertain or you have doubts or questions about it, and then flip that into something that you do feel confident about saying. All right, let's go back and say hello to people. Let's see, we got Thabinoth says hello, and Du says hi. Jonathan says hello, and A, that's an interesting name, just A, says good morning. Jelton, nice to see you there. Hello from Brazil. Gary Lee, look at that. We've got, looks like, I'm guessing, is that a battery or a finger pointing? I can't see what that is. These icons are too tiny. Maybe my vision is bad. And a 100%. So I guess like, I don't know, what is that? Is that a battery? It's like power. Is that power you 100%? Maybe that means. It looks like a good thing, though. And George, nice to see you there. So A lives in Bangkok. Jalton, do you think it's powerful to learn many languages using songs? Well, like, here, let me answer this question because I get some form of this question almost every video. And the people who have been following my channel for a while, or people who are in Fluent for Life or other programs, they will probably know my answer. But it's usually something like, Drew, should I learn with, and then whatever that thing is. So should I learn with, what was the one last week? I think Friends, like the TV show. So should I learn with the show Friends? Should I watch that? Should I learn by listening to music? Should I read? Should I listen? All right. Now, anybody who's been following me for a while, what do you think my answer for these would be? What do you think that is? Especially if you've read the book. So if you've read The Strangest Fluency Secret, then you will know my answer to all of these things. If you have not read that, actually you can click on the link in the description below this video to read the book. But anyway, I'll just give this to you very quickly. Anything like this can help you improve your conversational fluency, your again, like the feeling of confidence you have, or your ability to speak, or your grammar, or your pronunciation, anything really. So it's not that like any of these things by itself really helps you or doesn't help you. The question is, do you actually understand that thing or not? So just like the example with my daughter, we have a whole bunch of time spent learning math or spent learning languages. And so we can have many people who watch Friends. I don't know how many episodes or seasons there are of Friends, but I'm sure it's a few years of the show. And so maybe there are, 50 episodes. I don't know how many there are. But there are some people who can watch a lot of episodes of Friends, but still don't become confident speakers. Why is that? Is the problem maybe they need to watch more episodes of Friends? Or is the problem maybe they're getting lots of input, but they don't actually understand and feel confident enough about using what they learn? Okay? So the same thing with my daughter, Noelle. She's learning a lot of math. She's spending a lot of time in class, but not actually feeling confident about doing the math herself. So something hasn't clicked yet, that fluent communication switch, or in the case of Noelle, like being able to use math. It's just about understanding something and then having the confidence to use that thing or not. Okay? So I often say you can't be half pregnant. And that means like either you are pregnant or you are not. You can't be half pregnant. And you can't be kind of half understanding something. Either you feel confident about using it or you do not. And that's why I talk about this being a switch. It's not like you're kind of in the middle where maybe you still understand something, but not really. Either you have doubt or you do not. That's it. And that's why it's very easy. As soon as you remove the doubt, then there's nothing blocking the switch, and the switch flips on and you can express that particular thing. So often, like, you might learn something, maybe you feel confident about saying one thing, but you don't feel confident saying something else. So you flip the switch for one thing, but you didn't flip the switch for the other. It just means you still have questions or doubts, but as soon as you answer those questions or doubts, then you can speak. All right? So to answer this question, the Friends or songs or reading or listening or writing or whatever, the question is, does this actually help me understand and feel certain and confident about what I want to say? If Friends is doing that for you, great. If music is doing that for you, great. It could be a combination. Maybe I watch Friends and listen to songs and I read and do other things like that. That's the basic idea. Okay? So it doesn't matter if you're asking people, like for me, maybe my children watch, this TV show and that TV show and listen to some music or read something or whatever. They will get a combination of things, and maybe they watch a TV show but don't understand a lot of it. They only maybe understand 10% or 20% or 30%, something like that, but they do understand some things. All right? So maybe that TV show might be a little bit at a higher level. So I can understand if people want to watch Friends because they enjoy the show, but if their language ability is low and they can't understand the English or they don't feel confident about using it, then it might not be the best thing for them to watch. All right? So if you enjoy music, like for me, I will actually listen to Japanese children's music because I like listening to those songs and they help me learn lots of things, and the whole purpose of those songs is really to teach the language and the culture. And so instead of kind of higher level things that, I can understand a lot, but again, for the purposes of learning, I spend more time, like watching those children's programs in the morning in Japan that have kids' music on them. So I don't really know what's popular for actual radio music, but I know a lot of those children's songs, and I can even sing some of them. But a lot of them have helped me understand things like, basic verbs and prepositions and going here and going there and doing lots of different things. But again, the purpose is if you're enjoying it because you want to enjoy the show and you're beginning with what you like in terms of content, sure, enjoy whatever you like. But if it's not helping you understand and flip that switch, then you will probably be doing it for a long time. So it is possible to do those things, but it might not be the best idea for you. It really depends on what you're interested in. Excuse me. Turkic says hello, and Amujika says, I have difficulty reading or thinking about large numbers in English because it's quite different from Portuguese. I end up reading them in Portuguese in my mind. Yeah, I understand that problem. So for me, Japanese works the same way. So like $1 in English is, I think right now it's like 146 yen or something like that. And so the numbers go up much, much higher. So $10 in America is like 1,000 yen. And so often I have to think about that. And if it gets to be a really big number, then sometimes I will have to think about it in English first. But like, typically, unless you're just talking about really big numbers all the time, then it's usually not an issue. Maybe you just see a number like, we've got a really, a long number like this. Maybe you need to take time and think about it, put some commas in there. So this is 1 million in English, but if I'm doing this in Japanese, it's like, wait a minute, what is this number? I have to think about it. It's like, okay, like this is 1, 10,000, 10,000, because they count it a little bit differently like that. So I understand the issue with that. If you have to use big numbers all the time, you probably should get used to it with practice, just actually using the numbers again and again. But if you don't use them very often, I wouldn't worry about it. Especially most people are typically not talking about really big numbers. I mean, maybe you're talking about some business thing or economics or something like that, but you can let me know specifically when or how you're using those things. All right, let's see. Hey, and Haney, nice to see you there. I'll study English hard today as well. Remember, you don't have to study hard. You just have to understand. That's it. So it's not about studying hard. And that's the thing. People think they need to, like, I got to work hard to do it. Like, no. It actually should be easy. It's really my responsibility to make sure you understand the language well. And if I do not do that, then that's my fault, not yours. Eva says, good night. Again, you would say good evening. So if you're about to go to sleep and you're leaving the conversation because it's nighttime and you're going to bed, then you say good night. But if it's just maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening and you're just giving a greeting in the evening, we say good evening. So good night is what you say right before you go to sleep. A again says good energy. Okay, I think that's what that is. So learn and grow. Hello, good morning, sir. Tuck says good morning, Drew. Nice to see you there. Turkic says yes, dear. I need to know how to use the grammar. All right, we'll pick something specific. Danielle says Brazil here. Good evening. Nice to see you. Lewis says San Bernardo do Campo, SP, Brazil, I'm guessing. And Doa says, hi, my name is Doa. I'm from Sudan. Good morning. Look at that, people all over the place. So Chrono Go says, how to remove the doubt of a particular grammar point. Well, give me a grammar point and we'll figure it out. Is that from Chrono Trigger, though? Yeah, I always I enjoyed that game. Glenda says, good morning from Vietnam, and how it should be says, how do I speak fast English like a native? However, I'm a fluent English speaker, but I struggle a bit when I try to speak fast like a native. Nonetheless, I have a great accent just like a native. If that's the case, if you already speak well, if you don't make mistakes or whatever, you can tell me more specifically about what your worry is, if you have any, because usually there's some kind of blockage there if you think about it. So maybe you actually don't know the language as well as you think you do, but if you do, then there really should be nothing stopping you from speaking faster, although maybe you just need a little bit more practice doing it. So when we're talking about practicing using the language, obviously you can take things that you know and just repeat them and try to say them faster and faster, and that will train you to speak faster. But if there's actually a different problem, like maybe you understand or you don't feel as fluent, like you're still trying to think or translate or something like that, try to think about what the actual issue is. Because if you don't have any issue, then you need to just practice speaking faster. Just get more examples, and then you can repeat things like pick a particular phrase and say it again and again, or tongue twisters, that kind of thing. I don't really recommend that for learning the language, but if you're trying to practice actually taking things that you already understand and you just want to get faster at saying it, then that's how you would do it. And a native would improve in the same way. Rolla says, good evening. Bai says, Drew, just wondering how you learn the particle wa and ga in Japanese that many learners struggle with. That's a good example. There are a couple ways to do this. The first one is try to get naturally varied review even from lessons. So if you go here on YouTube, there will be many people who make videos about wa versus ga. And like when I'm thinking about it, I'm trying to, as much as possible, get examples of the language in context that help me understand the difference. And I'm looking at things like, why would they say wa and not ga? Like, for example, like これは markerね. So this is a marker. So if I'm saying これは marker, but if I say like, if I'm just talking kind of in general, like マーカは面白いです. So if I say something like that, like マーカは面白いです, it's like I'm basically talking about all markers, and it would be kind of an odd thing to hear people describe it in that way. That's why if I say something like このとんかつは or このとんかつは美味しい, like that makes sense. Like I'm talking about this particular meal is delicious. But if I'm saying like とんかつは美味しい, then it's like all tonkatsu are delicious. So when we're talking about wa, it's not like people think about it as a kind of grammar, like a grammar thing, but it's more try to connect in the same way you would learn English the situation with how people are using it. So if they say like このラーメン美味しい, このラーメン美味しい, like people don't even worry about using wa or ga. It's just within the sentence or within the situation, people understand what you're talking about. Like, このラーメンは美味しいね. So this ramen. So if I'm introducing something, like the topic is going to change, like now I'm talking about my eyes or something like that. So wa is kind of introducing whatever the topic of the thing I'm talking about, and I'm trying to say, okay, now we're talking about this. Like, 今日僕はいますけど、友達はもういないね. So like someone else says like, oh, is someone else like not here? Like let's say I come up, I don't know, into my friend's office and I say, like I see you are here, like Takefumi-kun wa. So I'm saying like, what about, like, and the topic now shifts to this other person, like what about that person? So in that case, like I don't even have to make a full sentence. It's just like kare wa. You know, like the other person. So I know you are here, but what about this other person here? So again, wa, as you get more examples of it, you realize it's just talking about, you know, like the topic. What are we talking about right now? So that's why you have to be careful. If you say like, maaka wa akai desu. You know, like what marker? Like all markers are like that? You know, how do you like, you know, understand like what marker I'm talking about? Anyway, I don't want to give like a lesson in Japanese, but this is the kind of thing that you will learn, number one, from like seeing different examples of it. But a good teacher can actually help you understand wa versus ga in the language, rather than trying to give you an explanation like, wow, okay, class, like we got wa here, and wa is the topic marker, and now we're going to say this, and now we got ga over here, and ga is the subject marker. You don't want to fill your head with that, because then it's just going to confuse you. But if you can get some good explanations with some good samples of, okay, here's how people are using it, that show you a contrast between wa and ga in sentences, then that will help you understand it. But if you're trying to think about it, it's kind of like, all right, let's say we have ni. Like, what does ni mean? So when, it's not about like what this means. It's just when do we use it? And I talk about this in The Strangest Fluency Secret as well. When natives are learning things, we don't just take a thing and try to learn like, okay, my dad tells me today I'm going to learn about the word, I don't know, could, for example. Okay, son, today we're going to learn the word could and all the different uses for it. We don't actually learn that way as natives. So you could do that, you could do that, you could do that, but most people do not. All right, what we do instead is you actually get an example that creates a pattern in your mind, and then we have examples of that. Like, I could teach you the language that way. We could go to the park today. I could maybe study some more. And you start to think, the possibility here, there's a chance for doing something. I could do that. Like, I could talk for a long time about using the word could. I could do that. All right, but notice what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to take the word could and teach you every usage of it. I'm trying to focus on a particular pattern, make sure you understand that, and then we can move to something else, which could be another usage of could. Okay, so when you're looking at something like wa and ga, ideally, and I don't really spend a lot of time watching Japanese like lesson tutorials or whatever on YouTube, but I know that there are those videos available, especially about like wa versus ga. And when you have a whole bunch of videos about wa versus ga, it means like people are still thinking about it like grammar or like grammar rules instead of just understanding and absorbing it how a native would by getting some good examples of it. All right. But I'm sure there are people who are much better teachers in Japanese than I am. But if I were to do it, I would do it all in Japanese. So I want to help you understand, like if I'm giving you, my typical lesson, like, これはマーカね。これもマーカですよ。これはマーカ。これは黒いマーカね。これはね。これは黒いマーカ。これはね。これじゃなくて、これは青いマーカー。これは赤いマーカー。Okay, so you notice I'm kind of jumping from subject or excuse me, topic to topic. We're in general talking about markers here, but I'm trying to focus on a particular thing. And if I'm changing the topic, then I'm trying to show you what I'm talking about instead. So try not to think about it in terms of grammar and more about when people use particular things. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. So, and Mosahid says, hi. And Tuck says, if you're asked, how would you feel about it? And if I say, I would feel it's good, or I feel it would be good, how is it different? I would feel it's good, or I feel it would be good. Yeah, both of those are the same. They mean the same thing. But typically, if someone asks you, how would you feel about something, you can just say good. You don't have to repeat the question back to them. You can, if you want to kind of practice using the language. That's actually something I recommend people do just for practicing. So if someone says like today I'm going to the school, or whatever, I'm going shopping. So if I'm trying to practice the language just to get used to saying words, even if I already understand them, I could say, oh, today you're going shopping. And so here I'm asking them back what they said to me. And it's more about just like confirming, but it's my secret way of getting that language practice in without them realizing that's what I'm doing. So someone says, yeah, tomorrow I'm going to Chicago. I say, oh, tomorrow you're going to Chicago? I don't have to say that, and most native speakers would probably not just repeat the whole thing unless it was a very surprising thing. But in this case, both of these are fine. But again, I would just say good. You don't have to answer the whole thing like I would feel good or I feel it would be good. It's the same thing. Turkic says how to use speech parts of the grammar. What do you mean? Pick a specific thing. What do you mean speech parts of grammar? Ilder says, what's going on, Drew? Glad to hear from you, mate. It's nice to see you there. Ayub says, good morning from Morocco. I am Ayub. I understand English very well, but I have problems in spelling. And when I meet a native, I get choked. I don't know why. Well, that looks like two problems here. So the first one, spelling. If you download Frederick, so you can click on the link in the description below this video, and that's where you can get that app, but it will teach you how to spell and make sure you can understand and spell and obviously learn lots of words and grammar as well. but it will teach you the same way natives do. So you can learn the rules of spelling and also the rules or the words that are breaking those rules. But the other part of that is when I meet a native, I get choked and I don't know why. Some people, if you still don't have that level of confidence in your English, then when you meet a native or even another person who is a non-native but can speak well, you might feel intimidated by that. And so if you feel nervous, then that can actually block you from speaking. And that's connected in part to the fluent communication switch that we're talking about in this video. But again, if you have that, the psychology or the feeling that you have is important for understanding, learning, but also for communication. So if you don't feel nervous when you speak, then you will express yourself. But if you do feel nervous, then you will have trouble expressing yourself. But try to think as specifically as you can about what your problem is. I can't help very well with just a general comment about struggling when you speak with natives. So you can think about specific things you struggle with or what's actually happening, because often there are specific doubts that people have, like, trying to use, like Taku was just asking about, using one phrase versus another. Like, can we change the order of those things, and does that change anything? So if you have any doubts or questions like that, it doesn't really matter who you're speaking with, but try to think about those things as you learn. So in my own case, when I struggled with learning different languages for many years, I just thought maybe I need to know more words, or I just have a general lack of confidence, or I have no talent in language learning, all that typical kind of stuff. But what I found out was when I'm trying to speak, the actual moment I try to say something, I can feel doubts that are actually blocking me. Like, I want to say this word, but actually I don't know if that word is correct, and so that's why I can't use it. So when you flip that switch, once you feel confident about your vocabulary, then usually you can speak with anyone. So in my case today, it doesn't matter who I'm speaking with in Japanese. I feel fine when I'm expressing myself. So that's what we're really going for, trying to get to that point where you know something and you know you're going to say it well when you say it. When you have that confidence, not just because you feel excited, but actually because you know that you will say something correctly, that's when you really start speaking well. All right, so let's see here. And says Turkey again says konnichiwa, and Raza says your lecture is admirable. Lux says good morning, also Japanese words. Yeah, I know most of the people watching this video do not speak Japanese, nor are they learning it, but the principles are still the same. So the way I would learn Japanese, or the way I do learn Japanese, is the same way I teach English. All right, sir, reduce the pet word, something like that. Sir, reduce the pet word. What does that mean, Raza? Learn and grow says, sir, Japanese is going over my head. Sylvana, nice to see you there. Hi, teacher. Lux says, my question is, I can't define certain things like different topics fluently. So for that, I need more vocab or anything. I am stuck here. All right. So that's actually a good thing to talk about, because many people do have that issue. But anyone who is in Fluent for Life, or they already have, maybe they've seen Speak Like Me, these programs. But I talk there about moving like water. And so let me write this up here for you. M-O-V-I-N-G, moving. Wow, this thing is really rocking back and forth on me. Moving like water. So what happens, maybe you notice it with me, or maybe you do not, or even when you were speaking your native language, typically you will have something you are trying to say and you might get blocked. Imagine this is a river flowing like that. So you're trying to say something, but then you think, wait a minute, I can't remember what the word is, or maybe I'm not expressing this very well, and you want to change what you say. What happens for natives is they simply go around the blockage by using something else. But non-natives, often they just hit that wall, and then they just get blocked and they can't speak at all. So if you forget a word, or you don't feel confident about something, then that's it. You don't really know how to express it. But typically natives, again, they don't really have this issue because they have multiple ways that they could explain something or talk about something in a different way. So if you, for example, give me a topic you're trying to talk about, I could probably give you some way to talk about that. Just like yesterday, I was actually, I have I started anyway, lessons, like private lessons with my older daughter, Aria, just like helping her understand English faster. So her English is good. She knows a lot, but I really want to prepare her to speak better. And she wants to have really strong Japanese and really strong English as well. So we're doing kind of like a private training for that. So not just, messing around like we usually do, but we had one of those sessions yesterday. And so one of the things I'm trying to help her with is speed and also this idea of moving like water and thinking about different ways to express things. So I gave her an example. I was sitting just on a chair. So this is me here, got my feet over here, and she's sitting down on another chair here. And I just stood up like this. So now I'm standing. And I said, what did I just do? What did I just do? She said, you stood up. You stood up. And I said, yes, exactly right. Now, how else might you say that? And she thought for a second and she said, you got up. Very good, I said. Is there anything else? Could you probably think of some other ways? I could say, you get. So you get up, like we're again trying to think about just different ways. Obviously get and got, or this is the past and the present, but I'm just helping her understand there are multiple ways to say pretty much anything. So I could have rise, or again standing or moving, or even more difficult things that maybe she doesn't know. But the point is, typically natives know a variety of things, or they just understand these different patterns, so I could, use these things in different situations. So maybe I'm lying down in bed, and the same thing, now I get up. Or you can talk about waking up or whatever, or other things like that. But if you're having trouble talking about a particular topic, usually it means you learned one way, and when you only have one thing to say, that's where you get stuck. I actually sent an email to subscribers a few days ago talking about a conversation I had with my dad, who actually just read my book a couple of days ago. So I'm having a conversation with him, and he is obviously a native English speaker, but he doesn't speak another language. But he did try to learn French and I think German and Latin in school, but he was unsuccessful learning all of those. He had to learn them for, classes or whatever. But the biggest thing, and I told this to subscribers, the most interesting thing that he learned from my book, because he kind of knows what I do generally, but now he can read the whole, philosophy and how it works and why I do what I do. But the most interesting thing to him was the power of variety. So I often talk about naturally varied review, getting lots of different examples. And so usually when natives see this, like ordering food at a cafe, you can hear may I have, or I would like, or could I get, or do you have any, or whatever. So you will hear different ways of expressing that same situation. So that's one example of naturally varied review, where we're talking about different ways of expressing something, or hearing multiple teachers explain things like I gave the example before for the difference between wa versus ga. So instead of watching one person talk about that, watch 5 different teachers and see how they explain it. And some people will just explain it like it's grammar. Other people will actually give you that intuitive aha moment way of learning. I don't know. I can't recommend a specific video because I don't know. But my guess is some people will teach it more effectively than others. Anyway, in terms of just getting multiple teachers to explain something, he realized, so this is again my dad reading my book, he realized that if he had had different teachers when he was learning something like, so you're learning French, but you've got maybe 4 or 5 different people who are actually helping you learn the language, you're going to learn it much faster. In part because you won't feel nervous about trying to sound exactly like one person. So most people, when they're learning a language, they only have one teacher. They don't have a team helping them learn. They might watch a bunch of different videos about random content, but typically they're not doing it in a structured way that actually helps them understand the language systematically. And so if I have one voice and then another voice and another voice like that, it's really going to help me understand the language, and I will develop good listening and pronunciation. I will learn to sound like a native, but I will still keep a unique voice. All right? So again, when you have trouble with being able to express things, it usually means you just haven't gotten enough examples that really make you feel confident about using things in a variety of ways. All right, let's continue though. Where did I? All right, we actually got quite a number of comments here. All right, I got some Hangul there that I can't read. Japanese and Korean have the same grammar, so it's easy, but English is completely different. Yes, and so if you learn something through a particular language, like if I try to learn English through Japanese, it's going to be more difficult. But if I can learn Japanese directly in Japanese, it will be much easier for me because I'm not trying to confuse my brain with steps of understanding grammar. I'm just trying to understand the situation itself. So it is possible. That's how you learn new things in your native language already, but that's how it works. So even if it's different, if you think about young children learning their native language, Chinese kids learn their language at the same rate that American kids learn English. So it's not like you have to wait until you're 10 years old to start speaking. You watch little Chinese kids, they're speaking Chinese. Little American kids are speaking English, typically. All right, how it should be says, what's the tenses that most natives use? Let's say mostly all the time. Well, I don't know. I mean, people use all kinds of tenses. It depends. We use like the present continuous or the past or the present or, whatever. People are using all of those. Even in this conversation, this lesson here, I'm using all of those things. I'm talking about the future. I'm talking about the past. So again, try not to think about it like, okay, natives use the present tense most, so I'm just going to learn the present tense. That's the wrong way to think about language learning and communication. Instead, it's a lot easier if you just say, okay, in this situation, here's what people say. And I just get a bunch of examples of that, and now I feel I'm not really thinking about what the tense is. And even if you ask a native speaker, hey, what tense are you using right now? Most people would not be able to answer that, but they can use the tenses correctly. So unless you're trying to be a linguist, I wouldn't worry about that. But if you are trying to actually speak fluently and that's your main goal, then just get lots of examples, exactly like I talk about in these videos and in my book. All right, Hassan says, is it okay if I understand the content of a whole phrase but not every word in it? Well, what do you mean okay? For listening to people, and this is why people often get stuck when they're trying to learn and get from the intermediate level to the advanced or fluent level. And that's like they think they know the language when they can understand it, but they actually don't know it well enough. They don't feel certain and confident well enough to speak it. So it's not about like, is it good or bad? If I'm just watching a movie, maybe I don't understand every word of it, even in English. Maybe I'm even a native English speaker and I'm watching the news about, I don't know, like today or whenever it was, Jerome Powell from the Federal Reserve Board, they lower the interest rate. Maybe I don't know anything about what that means. So I'm listening to the English and maybe I don't understand everything or what it means like for my life or whatever. But yeah, so there's a difference. Obviously, it's easier to just understand things than it is to speak, because when I'm speaking, now I have to make the sentence and now I have the actual problem with it. And that's why I talk about uncertainty being the real issue that stops people from speaking. It's not having more words, because it's easy to understand, or it's easier to understand things even if you do not know every word. But when you want to speak, most people want to be communicating correctly, and so obviously they want to say things and not have issues with their speaking. So if you want to speak correctly, then you probably want to know the language very well. But if you're just listening, then yes, it doesn't matter. Excuse me again. Chrono goes back. Why do people learn more words instead of building certainty with the words they already have? That's a really good question. And I talk about this in the book. But I have a few theories about this. Probably the most basic one is people don't like to review, basically. But that's only because they think review is repetition. So that's the only kind of review that they think is possible. And if that's what you think, then it's boring, basically, to learn something. So let's say I learn, let's see, like the word bake. And I should, like, maybe repeat that word. You all probably know what this word is. To bake something, like baking a cake. And so I could, if I want to review this word, maybe just repeat the word again and again and again. And as I repeat it, I'm not really understanding the word better or getting, more value from that word. It just is what I know already, and I'm saying the same thing again. And you can see why that's boring. Your brain already knows the word, and you're just thinking, all right, well, I don't care about that. But let's say you're in a conversation and you hear a friend of yours went to the pool and they came back with like a really bad sunburn. And so they said, like, I was really baking at the pool. And here you think, oh, that's interesting. This is not the exact same meaning of bake, like putting a cake in an oven and baking it. We're talking about baking like out in the sun like that. So I'm baking out here. Woo. So it feels like I'm really hot. I'm kind of likening this, so this word bake, to this usage of the word bake over here. And now this is naturally varied review. It's not repetition anymore. We have a new word, a new understanding, a new usage of it that helps you feel more confident about how it works. So now I can talk about, here's this other word, like I hadn't thought about that, and now I have, with the same word, a new way to describe getting a sunburn or something like that. So most people don't learn the language like that because it's difficult to teach yourself multiple uses of words. You can get this maybe from ChatGPT or a guide like me who actually knows how to teach this way. But again, to answer your basic question about why do people not review, it's typically because that's the only thing they know how to do or can do, because it's difficult to not. I mean, how would you know that without someone teaching it to you like I'm teaching it to you now? So even me, when I was learning Japanese, and still do, it's difficult for me to try to learn a word and then think, how else might this be used? So I can get help from ChatGPT or, look up things online or whatever to think about how else might something be used. But I talk about this in the book as well, about how you're learning and getting more examples. But I think, the most basic reason people don't do it is because it's boring. If you only repeat something again and again, then it's going to be boring. This is less boring because it's giving you new information. It gives you an aha moment. So if this is new for you, like hearing this example, I was really baking in the sun. Like my car is outside baking right now. I need to get it in the shade. It's just getting too much hot sun right now. So it's a similar use of the word, but more, it's not like the car isn't actually baking in the same way that something might be baking in an oven, but it's a similar idea. So natives can use it that way. So if this is new for you and you didn't know you could say this, and now you do, you should have felt an aha moment there where you think, now I can use bake in this way. So we've taken something and made it more interesting for you. But again, a lot of people, I think, so that the first issue is the boredom. The second issue is that if I think I know something already, then I'm not going to continue learning it more. So most people, they think they know something because they understand it, but they don't actually feel certain and confident about using the word. Now, something simple like bake, maybe you don't you don't have to think about a word like that so much. But when you hear a new use of it, like I've told the story before, this is a Japanese example, but I heard from my Japanese accountant, I was saying, when do you want to meet for the next meeting? And she said, like, 2月の頭はどう? And in that case, I was like, oh, atama. Like, atama means head in Japanese, but it can also be used as the head of the month. So we don't say that in English, but I understood what she meant in context. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So it's the same kind of example where I have a basic word like head, and I hear a different situation where that can also be used. And now that naturally varied review makes me feel more confident about the head of something. So in English, for example, you could have like the head, like, physical body head, something like that. So this is the head of a person, but we could also have like the head of a trail or the head of a river. It's like, here's the start of something, and then we have the finish over here. So this is the head of that thing. So other languages maybe not or might not describe it that way, but in English, we can. So you learn things like that as you get more examples. So I'd say probably those are the two biggest reasons why people don't do that. So either it's boring to repeat, or they think they already know it, so they're not going to learn it again. And I hear that from people a lot. I would say that's the number one problem that stops people from getting fluent. They will refuse to learn something new, or they will say, Drew, why are you teaching me this word? I know it already. And I say, can you use it? And if they say, oh, well, sure, I can use it, then we don't worry about that word anymore. But most people, they will understand something but still not be able to speak. And that's the difference. It means you haven't flipped that switch yet. There's something you're still maybe unsure, or you have a question or something like that, but that's typically why that happens. All right, I need to be faster with these responses over here. Let's see, did I skip something? Oh, okay. All right, how it should be says 100% yes, but I think you might need to understand each word separately because you need anyway. Well, what you're really building is a network, like I gave you this here. So we have kind of a spider web of examples. So this one is talking about physically baking something in an oven. This one is talking about something baking in the sun, and I could learn even other uses like that. But as I get more uses and I understand these things, I'm not trying to take a word and learn every use of it, like the example with could. I'm trying to understand what something means by getting related examples that have a similar meaning, and then maybe I expand out from that. But the point is, I'm trying to make connections in English. I'm not trying to translate anything. I'm trying to help you understand these things in English so you feel confident about using them. And that way you don't have to think and translate when you speak. So it's not about trying to like understand every word. It's more for this word in this situation, do I understand what that means? And if I understand that pattern, then I can probably learn, like, just like baking a cake, I can bake on the beach as I'm getting lots of sun. All right, Adelson says, hello, teacher. Thanks for all the videos. I'm using your old where you were young to shadow you. I see. I'm still young. What are you talking about? And my pronunciation improved. Glad to hear it. All right, how it should be is I just speak and let the other person correct me. I don't care if I feel nervous because of a mistake. Sure. So as a teacher, I can't just tell people to do that. I would be a bad teacher if I just said, hey guys, you go out and speak and it's okay if you make mistakes. That's me being lazy, essentially, and saying, like, I'm not able to help you understand the language. I want you to get out and do it yourself. So we talked about this in last week's video, like typical language learning is you have a problem with your car, so you go to the mechanic and then they can't fix it, so you have to fix it yourself. And that's the preparation gap where people learn things, but they don't actually feel confident about using it, but then it's their responsibility to fix that issue. But it is like a very common thing in language learning. But for me, as a teacher, it's my responsibility to fix the car. If I'm the mechanic, if you are coming to me for help, then I need to make sure the language is understandable, that you feel confident about speaking. That's why, like, I teach all the things that I do about flipping that communication switch in your brain, because even if you've struggled for a long time, just like I talked about at the beginning of this video, where my younger daughter, Noelle, clearly struggling for a long time until she was actually crying in class that she couldn't understand some math. So how many months was that? That was a long time. But almost like that, like within one day of practicing with her, now she's completely flipped. She flipped that switch, and now she feels more confident about math. All right, so this is not about spending more time doing things. It's about actually feeling confident about what you say. So as an individual, I say, great. If you don't feel nervous and you don't mind making mistakes and you want other people to correct you, then go out and do that. If you have that ability, that's great. But I think a lot of people would much rather feel confident and certain about their words before they speak, which is possible. That's exactly what I do in Fluent for Life. That's the whole point of the program. All right, Brittany says, hi, Drew. I am becoming an English teacher, and I try to use your method to teach them, but they just don't seem to like it or understand. They want to learn very fast and prefer translations. I guess it's because your method takes time and patience. Well, tell me more about your students. Like, are they 5 years old, or are they 35 years old or older? Because again, like a child, if you can actually teach them, and I don't really have much information about how exactly you're doing what I do, but if you, again, can give me more information. But an adult can usually understand, like, it seems faster, like, hey, give us more words, we want to learn as much as we can as quickly as possible, but then they actually don't end up able to speak. And so that's the typical process that happens for most people learning languages, especially people, again, like they don't want to take time to actually understand something. And so my way, like people think it's a slower way to learn because I'm spending more time initially trying to help people understand things. It was like when I was practicing with my daughter yesterday, and then the day before that. So when we're practicing, like you could say, Drew, why are you taking time to explain this stuff? Why not just get right to the math? And I say, well, she's already been getting right to the math for months and she's not using it well. So we have to try something different. And so it's the same case when people like, give me more information. But I have never been in a situation where when I've been teaching someone and like I couldn't help them improve. Although it might take a little bit longer initially because maybe I have to explain something. Even my book, like I would love to just tell people like the truth about learning, the way I see it. So here's an alternative to learning where you can actually feel confident about the language before you speak. Instead of what usually happens is people try to practice speaking, but they don't feel confident, or they don't have any practice speaking opportunities anyway, and they just feel stuck. So instead of doing that, why not just feel confident first? So that's the whole point of what I do, like what Fluent for Life does or what the book is explaining. But I have to spend 4 chapters of the book removing all these beliefs that people have about language learning. So you could say, Drew, your approach seems kind of slow. And I would say, well, it seems like you've been struggling for years. That would seem like a pretty slow approach to me. So you have to choose, really. Do you want to take a little bit more time up front? It's like that old story of the guy who's about to cut down trees and he spends more time sharpening the axe at first so that all the work gets done much faster. I'll just give you like a visual example of that. So we take 2 people, 2 woodcutters. So here's woodcutter A and here's woodcutter B. So they're going to cut wood. They each have an axe. I know it kind of looks like a flag, but it's like a butcher's knife, I guess. But these are supposed to be axes. I don't even know what like a good axe for cutting down trees is. But so you have to cut down. Here's a tree. And the first guy says, okay, I'm going to go out immediately and start cutting down trees. And it seems like he's making good progress. This guy over here, he's waiting. And he's just spending the first hour making sure the axe is super sharp. So this guy over here, he starts cutting down trees. He cuts down one tree, cuts down another. But this guy, he waited. And if you look at the first guy, wow, that guy already cut down 3 trees. I guess he must have the better approach because it was faster, right? But then this guy, as soon as he's done sharpening that, look at that. He can cut down a tree in like 1/10 of the time because whoop, his axe is so sharp. He just cuts through it, cuts through, cuts through, cuts through. And then when this guy has done maybe 4 trees, this guy has done 20 of them. So yes, it seems slower at first if you only measure in the first hour or the first day. But in total, actually watching the whole process, the second guy is gonna dominate. He's gonna go way better. That's why I put my process against anybody in the world who would try to teach. Like if you have like classroom A over here with somebody else teaching versus me, I'm gonna beat that person for sure. Absolutely. Because why wouldn't I? I help people understand the language so they can actually use it. All right? So again, the point is, if you don't understand what you're saying, you're wasting your time by just trying to learn more. The point is not how quickly you can do something. You have to think about the actual goal. Do you want to be speaking? Do you want to feel confident using your words or not? So that's why I focus on flipping the switch. That's the whole point of like this video or Fluent for Life or even what I talk about in the book. Let's see. All right, Amir says, hi, sir. I wanted to pass the IELTS. Please give us some advice. I have a good mark. Although my students do well on tests like that, I don't focus on that, so I recommend you find people on YouTube who do. Get the best advice you can for a specific test. Lewis says, what about translanguaging? What is translanguaging? I don't know what that is. That a word? I didn't know translanguaging was a word. That sounds like a marketing term to me. But if that is a thing, is it translating or you're turning one language into another? Give me more information about that. I've never heard of that. Brittany again, I'm getting frustrated because I really want to use your method to teach my students without translations, but they prefer that because I think it's easier to learn it that way. Yeah. Do you have my book? You should read that because it makes it a lot more clear. And also Frederick will show you exactly how to teach things without using any translations. So it also depends on who you're teaching, like their age or what their goals are, that kind of thing. But it certainly is possible and much faster to learn it this way. Learning Gross says, why can't the static verbs be used in progressive form like knowing, thinking? Why? Well, I guess it depends on the situation. But try not to like think about a rule. Let's see. I mean, it's more like thinking about a specific situation. I'm trying to think of like some faster ways to give you examples about this. But it never occurred to me to think like, okay, like a particular kind of verb why can't the static verbs be used in the progressive form like knowing, thinking? Wait, well, I mean, you are using those like that though. Well, I don't know. Maybe I don't understand your question here. Give me some more examples of the kind of thing you're trying to say. Hammond says, hello and good morning. Chrono again. Drew, do you say the sun rises in the east or just sun rises in the east? I'm having trouble the usage of the at the start of a sentence. Well, again, like think about just this specific example, not like all the time having the, whether the should be at the beginning of the sentence or not. The question is more like, do we talk about the sun as a thing? And if we talk about like sun, when we talk about sun in general, it's usually referring to our sun, but we could talk about there are 4 suns around a particular planet or something, something like that. So if we're just talking about sun in general, then we can talk about that as a particular thing for a particular location, like a star for this area or whatever. But when we talk about the sun, that means we're talking about our own sun. So in that case, then we would have the at the beginning of it because that's the name we have for our particular sun. So the star or whatever that's for us, we call that the sun. We don't just call it sun, we call it the sun. But we could say sun Like here, I had the example before, like I was outside and I got some sun today. It just means I was outside and I wasn't baking, but you can see my face is a little bit darker. I got some sun today. So I wouldn't say I got the sun, like I reached up and grabbed the sun and pulled it down. That would be different. But I got some sun today, like I got some sunlight today. So again, try not to think about it from a grammar perspective. Think about what you're trying to say for a particular situation. So what do natives say when they're talking about the sun? Like, ooh, the sun is extra hot today, or the sun feels closer than usual, or I like the sun, or I like watching the sun rise, or something like that. We're talking about our sun, and then we give that specific name for that thing. That's why we use the word the. Let's see. All right, Tuck says, you said you don't need to practice speaking unless you remove doubts. You don't need to practice speaking. Speaking practice is not practice. But how about speaking to myself so that I get used to the language? Yes. So I'll be talking about this in chapter 7 of the book. So we're talking specifically about practice. What I'm usually saying, and I know it sounds a little bit confusing, that's why I want to make this very clear, but let's start at the beginning, just making sure everybody understands the main idea of why I do what I do. So there are typically two kinds of learners who are looking for content on YouTube or the people I help. So the first one are people who are speaking. So they are speaking, but they're not doing it very well. Okay, so they're speaking, but maybe they're frustrated because their pronunciation is not very good, or they can't use grammar rules well, or they can't, whatever. So they're speaking, but some problems, and it could be confidence or whatever because of these issues. So maybe these are people who do have chances to speak with natives or just speaking some kind of English, whatever, wherever they live or online or something like that. So the other people I help are not speaking. And so these people, they don't have anybody to talk with either because they're shy or they're busy or maybe they just, I don't know, for whatever reason, whatever. It could be lots of reasons why people don't speak. I don't have anyone near me or I don't want to talk online or whatever. It doesn't matter what the reason is. But either it's this person or that person for everybody I help. So either you are speaking and you have problems or you are not speaking and you still have problems anyway. All right. So you're thinking you need to speak. So if most people are in this situation, then how do we fix that? So I can't tell people like, well, just speak more and it will get better for you. Like that's kind of silly advice. And for these people, I can't say, well, speak more because they don't speak already. So instead, we have to give them an alternative way to become confident speakers. And that thing is flipping that communication switch. So if I can help you understand something, just like I gave the example with the sun versus sun, if you feel that moment like, now I get it, then you feel more confident about understanding something, and then you can use it. So it's typically, instead of doing these things, what we're going to try to do is help you build confidence. So build confidence first. So instead of trying to speak to build confidence, which is a lot more difficult, or it's not possible for some people, why not just build confidence first? Seems reasonable. Most people do that. Actually, when you're learning things all the time, you might be watching movies or reading books or something, but most people are just learning things by themselves from information. Just like right now, you're watching this video, you're not actually having a conversation with me, but if I can help you understand something better, then you will feel confident about using it. So this is the point about learning something where you actually understand it, and then we talk about what people might think of as actual practice using the language. So practice. So practice, if we're talking about practicing the language like Tak was saying here, if you want to say things in your head or you want to just practice using things, that's great. But typically, understanding should come first. Practice is refinement, where we actually try to take things and maybe I want to improve my pronunciation. So, for example, I was helping my older daughter with this yesterday. Like she said, but, the word but. I said, yes, you said that perfectly, but typically in American English, we don't really have that T sound on the end of it. We just say but. You can feel I'm kind of leaving a little bit of space for the T, but I don't say it. But I don't say it. So she had she was saying, I wrote my friend a letter. I wrote my friend a letter. I wrote my friend a letter. And so she knows all the words. I wrote my friend a letter. But I was just helping her with her pronunciation. And again, same kind of thing where it's more like I rode my friend like that. It's like I wrote my friend a letter. Or you can just say like I rode, like if instead of I wrote, even if we don't have my friend in there, I wrote a letter becomes I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter. I wrote a letter. All right. So these are things where you can actually practice something by reviewing it or repeating it or getting more naturally varied review where you hear multiple people saying things that help you understand it. But a lot of this practice actually comes even before you say something. So you can feel free to practice by yourself if you want to do that. But the point is, most people are trying to practice first before they actually understand something. And repeating things is not really going to help you understand it better. So you should do this instead. Actually understand something either by getting people to help you understand it or you're getting these examples yourself, whatever that is. And then the practice comes after that. So feel free to speak and talk to yourself all you like at that point. Let's see. And Kumuda says, good morning. Can we use communicate or transmit instead of send? Well, it depends on the situation. Like if I'm talking to you right now, I'm transmitting a message. I could say that, but it would be more natural and conversational for this situation to say I'm communicating. So I am transmitting information. Often communicate usually has the kind of back and forth idea there. It doesn't have to, but usually it does. Like when we talk about communication, it's saying something and you say something back. We are communicating. But if I'm transmitting, usually it's just one thing going to some other place. Like kind of to transform or transportation, we're moving something or changing it from one thing into something else. So remember, learners typically want a clean answer to questions like that. But I will always say it depends on the situation. So it's not like which word is better, it's which word is better for what, for when. You have to think about, in this situation we use things. And that's why the people who focus on understanding situations are those people actually get fluent. Yen says, what do you think about understand then learn by heart all the sentences and all the phrases that native speakers use to talk daily conversation? Well, why would I do that? I don't understand. Like, so you're saying I understand and then learn by heart? If I understand, then I don't need to learn by heart because I already know. What you're saying, it sounds like maybe you don't understand, so you have to repeat, or you're just saying, maybe I don't understand, maybe I don't understand. Or do you mean like you understand the language, but then in addition to that, memorize a bunch of phrases that people say? I mean, I suppose you could do that if you want to, but for each of those things you try to memorize by heart, it's probably not going to be as valuable as actually knowing how to use the language. And so I often have people that ask me questions like this about like, what are the top 10 words or phrases that natives use or whatever. But although there are things that natives say, the truth is when natives are speaking, just like I'm speaking now, we have patterns And we've got different, there's like pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm taking these and combining them in different ways. So like when I teach phrasal verbs in my visual guide to phrasal verbs, I show you how you can take a few phrasal verbs, actually just a few words, like we have like turn, and then we have on, and then we have over, and then we have flip, and other things like that. If we combine these in different ways, now we can actually produce, like we've got turn over, we got turn on, we got flip over, flip on, and I can add more additional things that actually help me understand the language. Because I know the individual pieces very well, this is what I call magnetic vocabulary. I know it really well, so I understand how I can take these patterns or these words and then connect them in different ways, just like I'm connecting little Lego bricks. So I talk about this in the book as well. But this is why you don't have to sit and memorize a whole bunch of phrases. If you know the language generally, even if you only know a few things, if you know them really well, then you can actually use these things very well to talk about all sorts of things. So the same thing for me with Japanese. I should probably learn, I don't know, even more words and phrases, but the reason I don't worry about it is because I can already talk about many things with the vocabulary I already have. And often I get better at using that same vocabulary. So I'm doing the opposite. I'm not trying to just get more things. If you like doing that, fine. But if you just try to take a whole bunch of things and learn them by heart, it will probably not help you use them in conversations. It might, but it probably will not, because either you have to know that thing really well, but you still have to be prepared for how natives will say it differently or other ways that natives might express that same idea. So if I remember something like, some phrase like to each his, excuse me, let me write this better. So as an example of a particular phrase or something that a native might say, to each his, H-I-S, to each his own. Now, if I just give you a phrase like this and say, okay, go remember this, practice it, review it, just go home and repeat that, here's the definition for it, you still might not understand it well or use it confidently in conversations. But if we could take some time and give you some more examples, like this guy, he likes to eat cookies, this guy likes to eat pasta, this guy likes to eat dirt. That sounds kind of weird. To each his own. I guess, some people like, they like doing their own thing. To each his own. To each person, they have their own thing that they like to do. So some people, they do this thing, but other people, they do something that's maybe weird or strange, but hey, to each his own. So to each person, they have their own special thing that they do. That's what they do. I'm not trying to judge them. It's just, hey, to each his own. So here we spend just a little bit of time talking about something, and I don't just say, okay, here's a bunch of phrases and we're going to try to remember them, and most people would not be able to do that well anyway. But you will if you understand things really well. This will be the stuff you actually use in regular conversations. And you'll notice, even when I'm teaching these lessons, I can speak fluently without using a lot of difficult vocabulary. It's just using simple things and combining them in different ways because I know them so well. My vocabulary is magnetic, so I can use it easily. So if you want to do the same thing, focus on this part here. You can learn this. I mean, basically what we do in Fluent for Life is help you do both. I mean, you're learning the patterns, but you also learn a lot of things and help you use those things as well. But I don't recommend just getting a phrase book and trying to memorize those things. All right, Mohammed says, hello, sir. Advice for a teacher that will teach non-native speakers, kids for the first time in his career. Get my book. That's the best thing I can tell you to do. Get my book and download Frederick. You can get both of those in the links in the description below this video. But if you want to see me actually teaching people from beginning, well, you'll see it in Frederick, but right here on YouTube, just go to my channel and then look for I think it's called the Best Beginning English Grammar Playlist, and just watch that series and you'll see how I teach English in English to people who don't know it. Brittany says, my students are 8-year-old kids and adults. Okay, wow. All right, so you've got like quite a range there. I would, especially if you're talking with adults, find out what their reason for learning English is. Because if they care about speaking, then you can explain that. But you should read my book so you have the answers for their argument. All right, Dran says, hi, Drew. Elder says, in other words, to fix a carburetor, for example, you must know how it works and typical problems with them. Yes. So if I'm supposed to be a mechanic, I should know how to fix cars, whatever the problem is. You know, maybe there's some specialists for kinds of cars or parts of cars or whatever. But for language learners or language teachers, it's your job, or at least it should be your job, it's certainly my job, to help make the language understandable. Because if the language is not understandable, that's my fault, not the student's fault. Mom is students' English handwriting depends on my handwriting on the board as a teacher. So my handwriting is not very good. Like, this is not a handwriting class, and I'm specifically writing like badly because I'm trying to do it quickly. So I could take more time, but I don't like the dead air while I'm writing things. And it's hard for me to write and speak at the same time. But if you're also talking about yourself, then your job should be to make the language clear. If you have time in a classroom to do that, then definitely it's better to do so. I should actually just do this with a computer. That way I can type things up more easily and have you see everything clearly. Yen says, is there a way to study all the lessons in your Fluent for Life course? What do you mean, is there a way to do it? Well, you just go through all the lessons if you want to do that. It would take you a while. There's a lot of content in there, but you can certainly do it. I wouldn't try to rush through it, though. You will get more value by spending actually time with one lesson set than trying to do 10 of them super fast. It's the same story for everything I teach. Spend more time with fewer things, and you will become a fluent speaker faster. Dunya says, how do I solve my problem when I come to talk? I get confused by talking. Can you give me advice? Well, you're not telling me very specifically what your issues are, but I would recommend you read my book because that covers everything that you need to speak. For most people, they have specific doubts that stop them from speaking. So if you're unsure about pronunciation or grammar or whatever, that's where the fluent communication switch is off in your brain. And that's why you think, I don't know what to do. I can't express myself. But when the switch is on, bing, because now you actually understand and feel confident about speaking, then you can speak. That's the idea. So solve those issues, erase those doubts, and you will speak. All right, Chrono says, aha, thank you, Drew. Now I understand. All right, so that feeling that you got there, Chrono, about probably the different examples with the sun, if you have that aha moment, that is the feeling of that communication switch flipping in your brain. And now you should feel more confident about using sun versus the sun. All right, learn and grow again. Here we are taught you can't use static verbs in a progressive form, like if I have to say, I am seeing you, teacher. Rather, we have to say, I see you teaching. I hope you got what I mean by that. I've never heard of that, but I mean, again, when I'm thinking just not as a teacher, but as a native speaker, I'm always looking for a counter example. Like if I'm thinking of using a thing like wait, what was your example again? Like I'm seeing you. Yeah, I could say that. I could say I'm seeing something. Like I'm seeing like a problem with your argument. I could say that. That would be grammatically fine. So I could say that if that's what you're asking, like, is it possible grammatically correct to say that? And again, if you begin with a grammar rule, it's going to be much more difficult for you to try to think then, when can you say something that's correct? So often people will say, what about this word versus that word? And I say, well, in this situation, maybe you can't use it, but in this situation, you can. So it depends. Like I'm seeing a problem with this. You could say that, or you could just say, I see. Both of those are fine. But I mean, you could see like I'm looking at this and I'm seeing an issue. You'll hear natives talk like that. I'm seeing a problem with this. We probably wouldn't say like, I'm knowing something. Like that might sound a little bit odd, I guess. Like I'm knowing. So again, I'm looking for a counter example when I could say something. Like I'm knowing. Yeah, I guess maybe the word know. I don't know. But again, just like this would be actually a good question for ChatGPT because it can think about a whole bunch of counter examples. But if you can think about those or ask ChatGPT, it will tell you. But rather than thinking about a specific rule, try to think about when you can use things or when you cannot. Like I am having a problem rather than, you could say I'm having a problem. Like I go to the mechanic, I'm having a problem with my car. And in that case, it almost means like I have like been having it for a while. So I'm having a problem with my car. So there's a slight nuance in that example. Like I'm having a problem with this. All right, learning grows is like I'm having a okay, I got that one. All right, what's in a name? Good morning, Drew. Difference between practice. Those are just like British English spelling versus American. Same thing. Let's see. Share your journey. Says, sir, I improved my English talking to strangers and started an English podcast where I invite all English learners as a guest or a speaker. Enjoy. That sounds fun. Flip the switch means I'm talking about the communication switch in your brain. And so the idea here is that when you don't understand something, then you can't speak. So the switch is off. But when you do understand something, when you do feel confident about using it, the switch turns on. I recommend you go back and watch the beginning of this video, and then you can see that working. All right, Fernando says, whenever I am alone speaking English, I tend to realize that words are always going off my head. What do you suggest? You probably just don't know the words as well as you think you do. And again, I wouldn't worry about trying to repeat stuff. It's more like I've given examples in this video or many other videos, or like I do in Fluent for Life. The point is to get a variety of examples that really help you understand something. So you don't always need many examples. You could get one good story that helps you understand things. But that feeling that you have, it's actually a feeling when you understand something and you think, okay, now I got it. When you have that feeling that you understand something, that you know you could use it, that's where you flip that communication switch in your brain. So when you feel something, it's not about practicing something a lot or like trying to memorize things or learning a whole bunch of different expressions. It's about, do you feel confident about it or do you not? So for whatever you're learning, even if you only know a few words, it's better to feel confident about them than try to know a whole bunch of words and not really have the confidence in saying those things. Let's see. Han says, is Fluent for Life for beginners? No, Fluent for Life is not for beginners. It's for people who can understand this English right now, but can't speak. So absolute beginners, I would tell them to use Frederick instead. But if your issue is you can understand a lot, but you can't speak well, then Fluent for Life is for you. So if you read the information on the course page and you want to join the program because you don't speak very well, then the program will get you fluent. But if you don't understand at all, or you need to translate in a different language to understand it, don't join the program. It would be at too high of a level. So the whole point is we need to help you learn English in English. So I can't teach you through, Thai or Chinese or, Kurdish or whatever. I have to teach you English in English if you want to speak fluently. All right, Learning Growth says, please explain a bit about the modal verbs will, shall, and its uses. No, I'm not going to do that. Now, the reason I'm not going to do that is because you're asking for a grammar explanation when I've been telling you this whole video, if you focus on a particular situation when you use a particular modal verb, that would actually be helpful for you. But if you're just like, hey, here's a grammar example, you can get that anywhere. You don't need me to tell you examples of modal verbs. Fernando says, your videos are so helpful. Glad to hear it. And Hans says, what is the difference between may and might and can and I could? All right, this is another example of grammar where as a learner, you're looking for like a checklist of things. But natives don't think about the language that way, and you don't think about your language that way when you speak as a native. So we don't begin with like here's like have and could and whatever. Like if I have a long time, like a whole lesson set, I can make sure I help people understand differences between modal verbs like that. But I'm not going to do that in a video here. I've already covered modal verbs. You can actually just search my channel for modal verbs and you will see videos about specific things. But remember, the point is not to try to learn a whole bunch of rules about when you can use modal verbs and here's like an example of this and that. The purpose is you take a specific thing like could or may or whatever the word is and look for a specific example and try to teach yourself a pattern for using that example. So we take one thing like could, just like I talked in this video about using could. So could, like there's a possibility of something. Tomorrow, there could be rain. Maybe I could come to the party. I don't know yet. But I'm not trying to go through a whole bunch of examples of all these different things because it's not going to help you speak. If you're looking for examples of modal verbs, just go get a list of modal verbs if you want to know that. But it's not going to help you speak better. So why would you learn that? Again, like people think this is the thing they have to do, but the information is already available right here on YouTube. Like lots of people will give you examples of modal verbs, but will they give you good examples of how you could use one modal verb in one way and then you build from that? So I could teach you a bunch of modal verbs, but it probably would not help you learn. It wouldn't help you speak. You would just be thinking about grammar rules while you try to speak. But if you can think about an example of that pattern, so could has a bunch of different uses. I don't want to confuse you with a bunch of different uses of could. I could do that. I could. Should I? Probably not. Okay? If you want to speak, think about it like your native language. You're not thinking about rules in that way. You probably don't even know the names of all the rules for the grammatical points in your native language, like you do know those in English. Most native English speakers do not know those. They don't know what the present continuous is. If you say, hey, what's the present continuous? They would say, I don't know. Is it happening now? I guess I don't know. Like whatever. But they'll use it. They know how to use it correctly. All right? So again, that's the reason like I don't answer questions like that because it's not going to be helpful and I've already got videos on those particular things. So if there's a specific usage you don't understand, that's where I can actually help you. But if you're just looking for more examples of stuff, like that's probably going to be more difficult for you and it's not actually going to help you speak fluently. So try to think about the moment you try to speak, what's actually stopping you. Like you're trying to say something, but you can't say it for whatever reason. Maybe you don't know a particular word or pronunciation or whatever you're worried about. But think about that specific issue. I do recommend like to help kind of train you to think more so that you understand exactly how it works. Read my book. I would do that. Read that first. So you can click on the link in the description to get that. And then Han is saying, is grammar is important to speaking and listening. And again, like when I listed before, like should you use music or watch Friends or do whatever different things you might do to learn. And saying like, is grammar important? It's like, well, yeah, of course it is. But how you learn it is like really, really important for how you learn and how you use it. So if you learn grammar by trying to memorize a bunch of examples, then it's going to be difficult for you to learn. But if you actually feel confident about learning because you got some good patterns and you understand those and you know how to use them, then you will use the correct grammar at the right time. So yes, grammar is important. Listening is important. Speaking is important also. But the point is, do you understand what you want to say and do you feel confident about using it? That's the real issue for most people. All right, Learn and Grow. Sir, I am asking about what kind of situations they are using. I know language is all about situations. Well, then you pick a particular thing. What do you want to say? That's how you do it. So like right now, I am trying to order some food at a restaurant. That is the situation. How do I order something? And there are different ways I could do that. So I should probably hear different natives ordering food. And then if I have a question about any of those, then I get more information about it. But that's how it works. So you focus on a particular situation first, and then the language comes from that. Maribel says, would you please help me with the pronunciation of the city Lawton? Lawton. Lawton. Is that where you're living or something? Lawton? So Lawton. If this is like a city in America, you would say Lawton without the T there, like Lawton. But if it's in the UK, it'd be like Lawton, something like that. Lawton. And Hannigan or Yen says, does Fluent for Life expire? Is it for lifetime? You get lifetime access to the program. So there's no rush. You get in, spend as long as you like learning, and we're here every day to help people improve. So if you have any questions, let us know. All right. Every time I say it, people don't understand me. I understand. Lawton. All right. Well, that's a good place to end, though. Remember, I'm trying to help you think. I know if you think, why doesn't Drew just answer my question about, whatever, like the important thing here is actually training yourself to understand the language like a native so you feel confident, and that way you don't have to speak without translating. So for Yen's question, how do we speak without translating? You learn English in English and understand it in English. If you translate when you learn, you will translate when you speak. But if you don't translate when you learn, you don't have to translate when you speak either. So that's what Fluent for Life trains you to do. If you'd like to learn more about the program, I highly recommend you get the book first, though. If you're curious about Fluent for Life, you should get the book and understand how my way of teaching actually works. You don't have to read the book, but lots of people who are in Fluent for Life got the book because they wanted to understand exactly how it works. It's pretty simple. It's just understand the language before you try to speak. That's it. But I go into detail about how this works and how it's possible to do. But if you would like to speak without translating, that's what I help you do. All right. So if you would like to learn more about the book or Frederick or anything else, you will find the links right below this video in the description. And I will see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.